Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Flow Over Fear podcast, where it is our mission to help you to rise above fear and realize your ultimate potential in leadership and life. I'm your host, Adam Hill, and it is my goal to share with you the human side of high performance. My guests share their experience with fear, anxiety, struggle, challenge, and most importantly, despite all of it, how they rose above it to achieve incredible results. So, if you're ready to rise up, let's get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this recap episode of Flow Over Fear, where I'm going to talk about the interview that I just had with Tia Graham and share some of the nuggets of wisdom that she dropped. Now, she is an international speaker. She's a best-selling author of the book, Be a Happy Leader. And if you don't have this book, pick it up. It tells her story about how she grew up in a log cabin but ended up traveling the world as a director of sales and marketing for many hotel chains, and her experiences with happiness and happy leadership. She is also a consultant on positive psychology, and talks a lot about how we as leaders can become happy. And that's what we talked a lot about today was happiness. How do we be happy? How do we become happy, especially in a world where there's a lot of things outside of our control? And we started by going down the path of Tia's personal history as well, how she went into college with a little bit of a lack of a direction and ended up feeling that way and partying too much, feeling like she didn't have the direction that she needed. And I think a lot of us, myself included, can relate to that experience. Me, myself, I felt like going into college, I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be a marine biologist. That's what I wanted to do when I got out of high school. And I was so certain of that. But then when I got into college, those first couple of years, I struggled so much to compete with pre-med students and people that were really, really putting in a lot of time and effort. I didn't anticipate what the workload would be to actually accomplish my dream in that case. And I found pretty quickly that, my goals were not really aligned with what I wanted to become. And it caused a lot of misalignment and lack of direction. And I chose the path of drinking. And my anxiety got much worse and my fear got much worse. And so continued down some dark paths on that. And fortunately for Tia, she ended up taking an internship for kids in Hilton Head Island, and she discovered a new direction there, that she wanted to travel. She wanted to be in the hospitality industry, and so she chose to transfer and move to Hawaii, where she finished her degree. And she started working in hospitality, very quickly working her way up. By the time she was 26, she became a director of sales and marketing for a major hotel chain, working on Hawaii, and ultimately moving to New York, to Istanbul, to New York, or to Los Angeles, where she would be continuing to lead sales and marketing teams. And in that experience, I asked her what it was that got her to the level that she did, and how she was able to find what she wanted. And a common theme that comes up in many of these interviews is the idea of mentorship. She found mentors. And I wanted to learn more about how she was able to find the mentors, how she was able to get them. Because a lot of times we see people that have what we want, but we're either too afraid to reach out to them, or we don't have a connection with them, or they may not. We may feel that they just don't want to help. So I dug in a little bit on that, and one thing that Tia said was that in finding the right mentor, finding the person that had what she wanted and was a leader that she respected, what she did was she ended up being an intern for a woman, and wanted to impress her so much, Tia added so much value to this person. So that's one of the first elements of how to find the right mentor is add a ton of value. Add a ton of value. Show this person that you really, really, really want to be in that world. And
and do that by adding value for that person. And when they see that, they in turn will help you. And then the second step is take every opportunity when you're surrounded by people who have who know what you who know the things that you want and who have what you want, to take every opportunity to pick their brains and learn from them and ask them questions and find out how they can take on how you can take on the next opportunity to grow. And then finally, the final piece was really creativity, is bringing creativity in the mix. How can you creatively build a relationship with that person meaningfully, that it's authentic, and that you are, again, truly adding value for that person? That's how you can find a mentor in whatever industry you're in. And one of the things that Tia realized as she continued down this path of this career is that she really loved what she did. And she got a lot of happiness from it, but ultimately that the happiness that she was able to get from it, she was giving to it. She was adding service to her people, to her salespeople, and to her team, and in turn, she was bringing a positive attitude, bringing that happiness, so that she was influencing in that way. This was even helpful in the cases where she was working for possibly toxic leaders. And the way she was able to stay happy amidst that toxicity was to really disassociate herself from that leader's toxic attitude, realize that it wasn't her that was that it really wasn't her problem. It was the problem of the person who was toxic. And so instead of internalizing that and playing the victim and being unhappy about it, what she did was she chose to push outward. And this was a great message that she expressed. And one of the big takeaways from this interview is that when we're exposed to unhappiness or toxicity, or we're feeling that, or we're starting to feel that, one of the best ways out of that, out of ourselves, out of suffering, is to serve. One of the best ways out of suffering is to serve. And so she served her team. She served her team, and she worked on lifting them up. And that became her mission. And that became her goal. And that in turn improved her happiness. Happiness is a choice. And this is one of the key concepts I learned from this interview with Tia, was that we choose happiness regardless of our situation. I mean, we all know of people who are in difficult times in their lives that still choose happiness. They choose to be happy. And there are the people that should be the happiest people on the planet. They have all of the money in the world, all of the time in the world, all of the things that they could possibly get, and they're miserable because they're not choosing to be happy. Happiness is a choice. And if we have to choose that for ourselves first with self-love, believing that we deserve it. And when we do that, we're able to be more altruistic. It's not a selfish thing to desire happiness for ourselves, but when we're happy, when we're positive, we're giving more to the world. We're able to give more. And there's some common themes that Tia brought up about what happy people do in their lives to be happy. First of all, I mean, the studies show that positive people tend to be more successful. But they also focus on their spiritual, their mental, and their physical health. Because when we're focused on those three things, we can give ourselves the capacity to build happiness in our lives. Even when things, outside forces, may push upon us that make us unhappy. It's important to note that just because we try to choose happiness doesn't mean we prevent ourselves from suffering. Doesn't mean we prevent ourselves from experiencing pain. We are going to suffer. There's going to be bad things that happen in our lives. There may be tragic things that happen in our lives. Absolutely terrible, unforgivable, undeserved things, bad things that happen in our lives. But and it's not to say that we need to bring a positive attitude to those terrible experiences. No. We're allowed to feel the feelings we have, but generally speaking, overall, if we can bring a positive attitude to our world, we are focusing on something that we can control amidst a lot of things that we can't. And if we can accept the things we can't control and bring happiness to the things that we can, bring positivity to the things we can, we're more likely to err and to build that muscle of happiness and make happiness what Tia calls a superpower. Happiness is her superpower, and we can all make it our superpower. And that's how we need to do it. Well, we talked a little bit about this positive psychology and what positive psychology means, because there's really a science behind this. And I've talked about this before with my personal coach about positive and negative psychology. Negative psychology is really dealing with mental health issues and things like that. And I don't even really like that terminology of negative psychology, because ultimately it's all leading to the right place, the place of healing. But positive psychology is really the part of what makes life worth living, as Tia said. That was her definition for it. And it's such a beautiful definition. And it encompasses really three things that she explained to me: that we have more happiness than unhappiness, that we have meaning and purpose in our lives, a meaning and purpose that we could drive toward, and that we have experiences that make our life worth living, that we have these experiences that build us up, that make us wiser, that make us stronger, that we're constantly growing. That's where happiness really comes from, and that positive psychology works that way. And again, it's important to note that we're not always going to be happy. Even Tia was not always happy. She struggled for a time, and had a challenge with her identity after she had her kids, after she started her family. But her attitude and her outlook was able to shift herself into something more meaningful. Even though she was happy in her job, even though her job was a fantastic job and she was traveling the world and she was living in a beautiful penthouse in Los Angeles, she was crying herself to sleep because she felt the grief of knowing that maybe she wasn't as present as she wanted to be as a mother. And she wasn't where she wanted to be at that time. She had this struggle with her identity. She had tied her identity to that point with being a director of sales marketing. That was who she was when she defined herself. She was a director of sales and marketing. She had been since she was 26 years old. But now that was changing. And during a yoga session that she was participating in, she realized that she's not a director of sales and marketing. She's Tia. We can all learn something from that. Our identity is not tied to what we do. Our identity is tied to the person that we are, the character, the values, what we bring to the world. And when that happened, she was working with a coach where they entertained the idea of building a business around happiness, which to that point, Tia thought maybe it wouldn't be it wasn't viable as a business, but it was something that she was passionate about, something that she wanted to achieve in life. But with that mentor, they entertained the idea of building a business around happiness, and the birth of Arrive at Happy. That's where Arrive at Happy was born, and where Tia started to become a consultant for businesses on happiness, and a speaker, an international speaker on happiness. And she authored the book, Be a Happy Leader, to help leaders build their own happiness. She truly is an expert. She started researching the ideas behind happiness that were coming from Harvard and Yale and all of these respected institutions to understand how happiness can impact our lives. And from that's where her work has been born, and it is changing the world. And if you want to find out more about Tia, go to arriveathappy.com, and you'll find out more about her there. She expressed in this interview, if we take anything from it, that being of service is one way that we can bring more happiness to our lives. But she also said that she has 150 ways in which we can be happy. And if you want to learn more about those, watch her TED Talk. Look that up on YouTube. It's really, really great. It's got, in the first month since its release, it's got about 200,000 views. And it's a great message on her passion. And read her book, Be a Happy Leader, available on Amazon. You can buy it there. And visit arriveathappy.com. Find out more about her. Find out where she's speaking. Find out, learn about her podcast, the Arrive at Happy podcast. And yeah, check her out. She's a very inspiring speaker, a very inspiring person. And if you haven't already, listen to the interview. And in the meantime, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to the Flow Over Fear podcast. If you'd like to learn more about getting into flow and learn the foundations of flow, I have a free video series on my website at www.adamcliffordhill.com called The Foundations of Flow. Feel free to go there and download it and start your journey to rising above fear and achieving greater flow in your life. And if you like this episode, and I'm guessing you did if you stuck around for this long, then please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button, and you will receive notifications when I have new interviews, new recaps, and new trainings that pop up on YouTube. Thanks again for joining us.